Chosen one, why are you still struggling at 70, 80, 90 years old? Why does every month feel like a battle between your faith and your bank account? Why does it seem like God blessed everyone else's golden years, but forgot about yours? God's chosen ones. Time is up. This is your final warning from heaven. If this message has found you, it is not chance, it is divine design. Right now, this very second, heaven's countdown clock is ticking towards 0. Spiritual alarms are sounding in the throne room. Angels are positioning themselves for what's about to unfold. And you have been summoned to this moment for a reason that will shake you to your core. Something is ending, something ancient, something that has held you in financial bondage, spiritual confusion, and silent desperation for decades. The window is closing, the door is about to slam shut, and what I'm about to reveal will either set you free or leave you wondering what if for whatever time you have left. Listen to me carefully. At 87 years old, Margaret from Queens received a phone call that changed everything. A settlement she'd forgotten about, $400,000, after 60 years of scraping by. But here's what will shock you. She almost didn't answer the phone. She almost let it go to voicemail, one ring away from missing her miracle. Before this message ends, I will reveal the last sign, the final signal from heaven that determines whether you step into supernatural provision or remain trapped in the struggle until your final breath. But only those who stay until the end will receive it. Before we go deeper into this sacred moment together, I want to pause and thank every single one of you who has supported this message through super thanks. Your generosity means more than you know. You're not just donating, you're helping spread light to others who feel alone in their calling. Whether you give or not, I'm deeply grateful for your presence here, your support, your time, your attention. It all matters. And if this message resonates with your soul, go ahead and let the Holy Spirit lead your heart. If you feel something stirring in your chest, if every word I'm speaking is hitting places in your spirit you thought were dead, if this sounds like it's meant specifically for you, comment Amen right now. Don't wait. Don't think about it. Mark your agreement with heaven before we move forward, because chosen one, your time is up, and what happens next will determine everything. Why have you felt like a stranger in your own family for 80 years? Why does every church service leave you more lonely than when you walked in? Why do your own children look at you like you're speaking a foreign language when you try to share what's burning in your heart? Because you've been carrying something they can't recognize, something ancient, something sacred, something that heaven planted in your DNA before your grandmother's grandmother ever drew breath. You've always felt different, haven't you? Misunderstood, pushed aside, treated like you were too sensitive, too deep, too much. Your whole life, people have looked at you sideways when you said you could feel storms coming in your bones, when you knew things before they happened, when you wept for strangers on the evening news like they were your own flesh and blood. That wasn't mental illness. That wasn't being overly emotional. That was the mark of the chosen burning in your spirit. Listen to me very carefully. That rejection you felt, that wasn't rejection at all. It was redirection. Heaven has been protecting you, isolating you, setting you apart for 70, 80, 90 years, because you carry something too precious for the ordinary world to handle. 1 Peter 2:9 declares it with thunderous authority. But you are a chosen generation, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, his own special people. Not were, not might be. You are. Right now, today, at your age, with your arthritis, your medication bottles, your social security checks, you are heaven's royal priesthood, walking the earth in orthopedic shoes. Think about this. When a family passes down a priceless heirloom ring, do they give it to just anyone? Do they hand it to the neighbor's kids to play with? Never. They guard it. They protect it. They wait for the right moment, the right person, the right time to reveal its true value. That ring sits in darkness, locked away, seeming forgotten, but it's the most treasured possession in the family vault. You are heaven's heirloom. God has been guarding you your entire life. But here's where it gets painful, and I need you to stay with me because this is where the healing begins. You've been carrying the weight of thinking those lonely years were wasted. The decades when your spouse didn't understand you. The seasons when your children moved away and forgot to call. The nights when you sat in your empty house wondering if anyone on earth actually saw you, actually valued what you carried in your heart. You measured those years as loss, but heaven has been measuring them as preparation. Every tear you cried in secret, God collected in bottles. Every prayer you whispered when your voice was hoarse from calling out to him, he recorded in golden books. Every moment you felt forgotten, he was taking notes on your faithfulness. Every scar on your heart became a place where his light could shine through. Those weren't wasted years, dear one. Those were your seminary years, your training ground, your spiritual boot camp for what heaven is about to release through your life. You think your story is ending. Your story is just beginning to make sense. The loneliness you felt wasn't punishment, it was purification. The misunderstanding wasn't rejection, it was protection. The years when nothing seemed to happen weren't emptiness, they were incubation. God has been growing something inside you that the world has never seen before, and it's finally time for the harvest. But here's the part that's going to shake you. You've been looking at your life through Earth's lens when heaven sees it completely differently. Earth sees your wrinkles and calls them decline. Heaven sees those same lines and calls them wisdom etched by fire. Earth sees your slower pace and calls it limitation. Heaven sees that measured walk and calls it the steady march of someone who knows their destination. You carry marks on your soul that only the chosen bear. Marks that most people your age don't have because they were never called to carry what you've carried. They lived comfortable lives while you lived consecrated ones. They received applause while you received anointing. They got easy paths while you got eternal purpose. And those marks? They're about to become your credentials for the greatest assignment of your life. The enemy tried to use your differences to isolate you, but God is about to use those same differences to elevate you. What made you feel like an outsider is about to make you the inside voice that this generation desperately needs to hear. Right now, can you feel something shifting in your chest? That's not heartburn. That's not anxiety. That's recognition. Your spirit recognizing what your mind is just beginning to understand. You were never meant to blend in because you were designed to stand out. And in just a few minutes, I'm going to reveal the 3 final marks that only heaven's chosen carry, marks that you've had your entire life without realizing what they meant. These marks will explain everything. Why you felt different, why you've been through what you've been through, and why this message found you at this exact moment. But first, you need to understand why heaven is breaking its silence now, why the window is closing, and why your greatest days aren't behind you. They're about to explode into reality in ways that will leave your family speechless and your enemies stunned. The unveiling has only just begun. You thought God had forgotten you, didn't you? At 3 in the morning, when arthritis pain shoots through your bones like lightning, when you're calculating whether you can afford both your heart medication and groceries this month, when you stare at the ceiling wondering if anyone would even notice if you were gone, you whispered into that darkness, God, where are you? I need you to listen to me very carefully, chosen one, because what I'm about to tell you will shatter every lie you've believed about your pain. For 60, 70, 80 years, you've carried burdens that felt like punishment. The husband who died too young, leaving you to face 20 years of empty chairs at the dinner table. The children who moved 3,000 miles away and call twice a year if you're lucky. The dreams you buried under decades of just surviving. The friends whose funerals you've attended until you're afraid to get close to anyone new. You've been told to count your blessings by people who sleep soundly every night. You've smiled in church while your heart was breaking. You've said, I'm fine so many times you almost believe it yourself. But here's what nobody told you about your tears. about those nights when grief felt like a physical weight crushing your chest. Every single drop was being collected in heaven's bottles. The Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit. Psalm 34:18 wasn't written for the comfortable, beloved. It was written for you, for the woman who lost her firstborn to cancer, for the man whose business collapsed in 2008, for every senior citizen who has ever felt invisible in a world that worships youth. Look at your hands right now. Really look at them. Those lines aren't just age marks. Those scars aren't just accidents. Every wrinkle on your skin, every spot, every tremor. It's not decay, chosen one. It's prophecy etched by the hand of the Almighty Himself. You see, while you thought you were breaking down, God was building something up. While you felt forgotten, heaven was taking careful notes. Every time you chose faith over fear, love over bitterness, hope over despair, when no one was watching, when no one was cheering, when no one even knew you were fighting, God saw it all. That depression that nearly took you out in your 50s, that wasn't meant to destroy you. That was God's furnace, burning away everything that wasn't pure gold. That financial ruin that left you eating mac and cheese for months, that wasn't punishment. That was preparation, teaching you that your security doesn't come from Wall Street, but from the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Think about Job for a moment. This man lost everything: his children, his wealth, his health. His own wife told him to curse God and die. But Job 42:10 tells us something that will rock your world. After Job had prayed for his friends, the Lord restored his fortunes and gave him twice as much as he had before. Twice as much. After the testing, after the tears, after the nights when death seemed kinder than another day of suffering. You've been in your Job season, haven't you? The enemy has thrown everything at you. But here's what hell never counted on. Every attack was actually building your spiritual muscle. Every loss was teaching you what truly matters. Every tear was watering seeds of compassion that will bloom in ways you can't even imagine. Your loneliness taught you to value real connection. Your poverty showed you the difference between wants and needs. Your pain gave you eyes to see others who are hurting. While others lived comfortable lives, you were earning a PhD in trusting God when nothing makes sense. But why you? Why did your path have to be so much harder than your neighbors? Why did you have to bury your spouse while other couples celebrated their golden anniversary? Why did your children struggle while others seemed blessed? Because God doesn't give His hardest assignments to His weakest soldiers. You weren't chosen for comfort, beloved. You were chosen for combat, not against flesh and blood, but against the principalities and powers that try to convince people that suffering means God doesn't love them. Your life is about to become living proof that He does. Moses spent 40 years in the desert before he led Israel out of Egypt. David spent years running from King Saul before he touched the throne. Jesus Himself had to die before He could resurrect. The pattern is always the same. The greater the calling, the greater the preparation through fire. Your fire wasn't meant to consume you. It was meant to refine you. Right now, as I speak these words, something is shifting in the spiritual atmosphere around your life. The same God who turned Job's captivity, who made Moses a deliverer, who raised Jesus from the dead. He's looking at your scars and calling them beautiful. He's looking at your tears and calling them precious. He's looking at your broken heart and declaring it ready. Ready for what? Ready to become the answer to someone else's desperate prayer. Ready to be the voice that says, I've been where you are, and God is faithful. Ready to show a younger generation what it looks like to trust God when the storm is raging and the night is darkest. If you believe your pain has a purpose, if something in your spirit is recognizing truth in these words, if you're finally understanding that your suffering wasn't senseless but sacred, declare it in the comments right now. I still believe. This is your act of faith. This is your declaration that the enemy didn't win, couldn't break you, and won't silence your testimony. Because, chosen one, your testing ground is about to become your launching pad. And what God is preparing to release through your life will make every tear worth it. But first, you need to understand exactly what heaven has been building in you during those long, dark nights. Chosen one, do you hear that? That ticking, that's not your grandfather clock in the hallway. That's not the sound of time passing. That's the countdown clock of heaven itself, and it's about to strike 0 over your life. Right now, somewhere in Brooklyn, an 83-year-old woman named Dorothy is staring at an eviction notice. 67 years she's lived in that same apartment. 67 years of faithful church attendance, of tithing when she had nothing to tithe, of believing God would provide. And now she's 3 days away from being on the street. 3 days, 72 hours, 4,320 minutes. And she's asking the same question you're asking: God, where are you? But here's what Dorothy doesn't know. Here's what you don't know. That eviction notice isn't her ending. It's heaven's final alarm clock. And what happens in the next 72 hours will determine whether she steps into the miracle God prepared for her or dies wondering why he never showed up. There are 3 warnings from heaven. We've already seen the first. By the end, I'll reveal the last, and when you hear it, you will know time has run out. Listen to me carefully, dear one. You think you're just getting older. You think your body slowing down is natural aging. You think your bank account staying empty is just the reality of fixed income. But what if I told you that everything you're experiencing right now is actually heaven's way of getting your attention? What if your struggle isn't punishment, but preparation for the greatest miracle of your lifetime? Think about a seed buried in the ground, buried in darkness, pressed down by dirt. If you saw it, you'd think it was dying. But something supernatural is happening in that darkness. The seed is either going to rot, or it's going to explode into life. Right now, you're that seed. And the pressure you've been feeling, the financial strain, the health concerns, the loneliness, that's not God burying you. That's Him preparing you for breakthrough that will leave your children speechless. But here's the terrifying truth nobody wants to tell you. Seeds have expiration dates. Hebrews 3:15 thunders from heaven with words that should shake every complacent bone in your body. Today, if you hear His voice, do not harden your hearts. Not tomorrow. Not next week when your social security check comes in. Not next month when you feel more ready. Today, because tomorrow might be too late. Let me paint you a picture that will haunt you if you ignore it. You're standing at Grand Central Station. The final boarding call is echoing through the terminal. Last call for the 11:47 to Glory. All aboard. The conductor's hand is on his watch. The train doors are beginning to close. And you're standing there with your ticket in your hand, wondering if you should board or wait for the next train. But chosen one, there is no next train. This is it. This message, this moment, this divine appointment between your desperation and God's intervention. The clock isn't just ticking, it's screaming, and every second you hesitate is a second closer to missing the miracle that has your name written all over it. Do you remember what happened to the 5 foolish virgins in Matthew 25? They had lamps, they had wicks, they had everything they needed except oil. And when the bridegroom came at midnight, they weren't ready. The door closed. And Jesus spoke the most terrifying words in all of Scripture. Truly I say to you, I do not know you. Right now, it's 11:58 p.m. on heaven's clock. The bridegroom is coming. The question that will determine your eternal financial destiny is this: do you have oil in your lamp? Or are you about to hear those same devastating words, I do not know you? Dorothy doesn't know it yet, but in exactly 67 hours, her landlord is going to get a phone call from a law firm in Manhattan. A class action settlement she'd forgotten she was part of. $237,000, enough to buy her apartment building. But if she gives up hope, if she stops believing, if she hardens her heart against God's voice, calling her to trust Him one more time, she'll miss the miracle that's already been signed, sealed, and delivered in heaven's courtroom. The same miracle that's been signed for you. You see, the devil has been playing a cruel game with your mind. He's been whispering lies about your age, your worth, your worthiness. You're too old for miracles, he hisses. God's done blessing people like you. But that's the greatest lie ever told, because God doesn't measure your readiness by your wrinkles. He measures it by your willingness to believe that he's still the same God who parted the Red Sea, who fed 5,000 with a boy's lunch, who raised the dead to life. The final boarding call is echoing through the spiritual realm right now. Can you hear it? Last call for financial freedom, last call for divine health, last call for supernatural provision. The conductor is looking at his watch. The doors are beginning to close. But before they slam shut forever, I need you to understand something that will either save your future or haunt your remaining days. There's a second warning from heaven that's about to be revealed, and when you hear it, everything you thought you knew about your situation is going to change. The question is, will you be ready to receive it? You think God has forgotten you because you're 82 years old and still struggling to pay for your medication. Let me tell you about Moses. 80 years old when God found him in the desert, tending sheep, believing his best days were ancient history. His hands shook, his speech stammered. The world had written him off as a has-been shepherd. But God wasn't looking at Moses' birth certificate. He was looking at his burning heart. When the Almighty spoke from that burning bush, he didn't say, Moses, you're too old. He said, Moses, now you're ready. 80 years of preparation, 80 years of character building, 80 years of learning that human strength fails, but divine power never does. You've been in your own wilderness, haven't you? 40 years of watching others get promoted while you got passed over. Decades of faithful service that nobody noticed. Years of praying prayers that seemed to bounce off heaven's ceiling. But what if I told you that wilderness wasn't your punishment? What if it was your preparation? Moses didn't just lead Israel out of Egypt. He parted the Red Sea at 83. He climbed Mount Sinai at 85. He died at 120, with his eye undimmed and his natural force unabated. God's greatest servant peaked in what the world calls the twilight years. But Moses isn't alone in this hall of faith. Consider Joseph, sold into slavery by his own brothers at 17, falsely accused and thrown into prison at 25, forgotten by everyone who should have remembered him. For 13 years, Joseph sat in darkness, while his dreams seemed to mock him from the shadows. Then came the call. In a single day, Joseph went from prisoner to prime minister, from forgotten to Pharaoh's right hand, from victim to victor. Genesis 41-40 tells us that at 30 years old, Joseph ruled all of Egypt. But here's what will shock you. His greatest victories came after his deepest defeats. You've been betrayed, haven't you? By children who should have honored you. By companies that should have valued your decades of loyalty, by a system that throws away its elders like yesterday's newspaper. But every betrayal in Joseph's life was actually God positioning him for unprecedented promotion. Your betrayals aren't your disqualification, they're your preparation. Look at Esther, an orphan girl, raised by her cousin, with no earthly reason to believe she'd ever matter. But Esther 4:14 records the words that changed history. Who knows but that you have come to your royal position for such a time as this? Such a time as this. Not for easier times, not for convenient times, for such a time as this. When America is hemorrhaging hope, when families are fracturing, when the elderly are being discarded like broken furniture, when the very foundations of faith are under assault. You think you're too late. Esther saved an entire nation when it seemed impossible. You think you're too ordinary. She was a nobody who became the queen who preserved God's people. You think your voice doesn't matter. One woman's courage prevented genocide. And David, sweet David, the forgotten son, so insignificant that his own father didn't bother to call him when the prophet came looking for the next king. 1 Samuel 16:11 captures the heartbreak. Are these all the sons you have? Jesse had to think for a moment. Well, there is the youngest, but he's out in the fields with the sheep. The youngest, the smallest, the overlooked, the one doing the invisible work while his brothers stood in the spotlight. Sound familiar? But when Samuel saw David, heaven's anointing fell like thunder, not on the tall one, not on the impressive one, on the faithful one, the one who had learned to worship in solitude, to fight lions and bears with no audience, to trust God when no human eye was watching. David wasn't crowned king the day he was anointed. He spent years running from cave to cave, hiding from King Saul, wondering if God had made a mistake. But those cave years weren't delay, they were development. Every psalm David wrote in darkness became light for millions who followed. This pattern echoes through American history itself. Harriet Tubman, beaten and broken by slavery, became the Moses of the Underground Railroad. Martin Luther King Jr., thrown into jail in Birmingham, wrote a letter that changed a nation's conscience. Nelson Mandela, imprisoned for 27 years, emerged to lead South Africa from apartheid to freedom. The common thread: none of them were chosen despite their struggles. They were chosen because of them. Every senior citizen watching this message carries scars that tell stories. Scars from the Great Depression that taught you the value of every penny. Scars from World War II that showed you what real sacrifice looks like. Scars from raising children who broke your heart and mended it 1,000 times. Scars from burying spouses who were your whole world. Those aren't marks of failure. Those are marks of preparation. But here's the question that will determine your destiny. If God used an 80-year-old stutterer to deliver a nation, if he used a betrayed slave to save the known world, if he used an orphan girl to prevent genocide, if he used a forgotten shepherd boy to establish an eternal kingdom, what makes you think he won't use you? Yes, you. At 75, wondering if your best days are behind you. Yes, you. At 83, feeling invisible in a youth-obsessed world. Yes, you. At 91, believing your voice no longer matters. God specializes in using the used up, the worn out, the written off. Your age isn't your limitation, it's your qualification. Your struggles aren't your disqualification, they're your credentialing. Your scars aren't your shame, they're your signature that you've walked with God through fire and lived to tell about it. Right now, at this very moment, heaven is looking for voices that carry authority earned through suffering, hands that have been refined by fire, hearts that have been enlarged by loss, spirits that have been deepened by waiting. The world needs what you carry. This generation needs your stability when everything shakes. They need your wisdom when confusion reigns. They need your faith when doubt whispers lies. If this message has awakened something in your spirit that's been sleeping for decades, if you feel that familiar stirring of divine purpose, if you recognize that God hasn't forgotten your address, then do what Moses did at the burning bush, what Samuel did when God called his name, what Isaiah did when he saw the Lord high and lifted up. Write in the comments, "Here I am, Lord." That's the same prayer that changed history. That's the same surrender that parted seas, toppled kingdoms, and established covenants. But something tells me you already know. This isn't just another message, isn't just another video, isn't just another moment in your routine. Something tells me you can feel it, the shift, the stirring, the divine appointment that's been orchestrated since before time began. Because if God's pattern holds true, and it always does, then your greatest assignment isn't behind you, it's ahead of you. For 70 years, you've wondered why you feel everything so deeply, why you walk into a room and instantly know who's hurting, why you can sense lies before they're spoken, why you carry burdens that aren't even yours to bear. They called you too sensitive, too emotional, too much. But what if I told you that what they labeled as your weakness was actually heaven's fingerprint on your soul? You see, chosen one, God doesn't mark his vessels with gold crowns or silver rings. He marks them with something far more precious, divine sensitivity, the ability to feel what others cannot, to see beyond the veil, to carry the weight of intercession when the world sleeps. Think about the prophet Samuel. 1 Samuel 3:10 tells us, "The Lord came and stood there, calling as at the other times, 'Samuel, Samuel.' But here's what shakes me to my core. Samuel was the only one who heard. Eli couldn't hear it. The other priests missed it completely. Only the marked one received the frequency of heaven. That restlessness you feel at 3 a.m. when you're suddenly burdened to pray for someone you haven't spoken to in years, that's not insomnia, that's intercession. That crushing weight in your chest when you see injustice on the news, that's not depression, that's divine empathy. You're not broken, dear one, you're branded. But there's more. The second mark runs even deeper. How many times have you stood before an impossible door, knowing you had no business walking through it? How many opportunities opened for you, when your resume said no, when your age said no, when logic itself said no? You've lived long enough to see it, haven't you? That strange favor that follows you. Parking spaces that appear out of nowhere. Phone calls that come at exactly the right moment. People who help you for reasons they can't explain. You brushed it off as luck, as coincidence, as just being in the right place at the right time. But Psalm 5:12 declares, "Surely, Lord, you bless the righteous, you surround them with your favor, as with a shield." Divine favor isn't random, it's recognition, heaven recognizing its own. At 83, Martha from the Bronx applied for senior housing after waiting 18 months on a list of 3,000 people. The next day, the very next day, they called her name, first on the list. The housing officer couldn't explain it, but heaven could. You see, when God places his mark on someone, doors don't just open, they leap off their hinges. Walls don't just crumble, they bow. The favor isn't earned, chosen one. It's inherited. You carry the DNA of divine preference, and the universe itself recognizes the signature. But the third mark, the third mark will leave you breathless. Look at yourself right now. Really look. Count the battles you've survived, the diagnoses that should have ended you, the financial collapses that should have destroyed you, the betrayals that should have broken you, the losses that should have buried you. You survived the heart attack at 68 when the doctor said you flatlined for 4 minutes. You survived the cancer that claimed 3 others in your support group. You survived the depression so deep that getting out of bed felt like climbing Mount Everest. You survived the poverty that should have put you on the streets. You survived the loneliness that drives others to despair. You survived what killed others, and you want to know why? Because your destiny is not finished. Job understood this mark. In Job 14:14 he asked, "If someone dies, will they live again? All the days of my hard service, I will wait for my renewal to come." Job lost everything. His children, his wealth, his health. His wife told him to curse God and die. His friends accused him of hidden sin, but he couldn't die. Something in him refused to quit. Something ancient and eternal kept his heart beating when it should have stopped. You survived the divorce that destroyed your best friend. You endured the bankruptcy that sent your neighbor into despair. You survived because you are chosen. You endured the isolation that drove others to addiction because you are chosen. You weathered the storms that shipwrecked stronger vessels because you are chosen. Every breath in your lungs right now is proof that heaven has spared you for this hour. Listen to me carefully. Your survival is not luck. Your endurance is not willpower. Your ability to keep going when everything in you wants to quit is evidence that you carry something hell cannot kill, something time cannot erode, something circumstances cannot destroy. You are still here because God is not done with you yet. You are still breathing because your assignment is not complete. You are still standing because your testimony is not finished. The enemy threw everything he had at you: bankruptcy, betrayal, bereavement, breakdown, and you're still here, still believing, still hoping, still trusting God when trust makes no sense. Your survival is the proof that time is up. Heaven has protected you, preserved you, positioned you for this exact moment when everything you've endured becomes the very thing that qualifies you for what's coming next. But why now? Why is this the hour of revelation? What makes this moment different from all the years you've wondered about your purpose? Listen to me, chosen one. For 70 years, 80 years, maybe 90 years, you have been carrying a burden that was never yours to bear. You have been fighting battles that heaven never assigned to you. You have been struggling to prove your worth to a God who chose you before your first breath. But something is happening right now. Something is stirring in your chest. Something you can't name, can't explain, can't ignore. That restlessness that keeps you awake at 3 a.m. That ache in your spirit when you look at your bank statement. That knowing that there's something more, something greater, something you're supposed to be walking in. That's not anxiety, dear one. That's heaven's alarm clock. You think you're having a nervous breakdown at 85. You think you're losing your mind because you feel more restless now than you did at 25. Listen carefully. That stirring is the Holy Spirit, preparing you for the greatest move of God you will ever experience in your lifetime. But here's what will shock you to your core. This moment, right now, as you're watching this message, is the final warning, the last call. The ultimate countdown before heaven closes the door on this season of supernatural provision. The enemy has spent decades convincing you that your golden years should be your settling years, that retirement means retiring from God's purposes, that your wrinkled hands are too old to carry His fire. But I'm here to tell you that hell has been lying to you. Your wrinkles are not signs of decay, they are crowns of wisdom. Every line on your face tells a story of God's faithfulness. Every gray hair is a trophy of endurance. Every scar on your heart is proof that you survived what was designed to destroy you. You want to know why you're still here, when friends half your age have already gone home to glory? Because God saved His best wine for last. Because the assignment He has for you requires the depth that only comes from decades of walking with Him through fire. Think about Moses. 80 years old when God called him to his greatest assignment. Not 20, not 40, 80. When the world would have put him in a nursing home, God put a staff in his hand and said, "Now you're ready to split seas." Think about Sarah, 90 years old when God opened her womb. The doctors would have laughed, society would have mocked. But heaven was saying, "Now you're mature enough to birth nations." Think about Anna the prophetess, 84 years old, spending every day in the temple. People probably whispered, "Poor old Anna, still hanging around after all these years." But when baby Jesus walked through those doors, she was the first to recognize the Messiah. Your age is not your limitation, it is your qualification. But here's the urgency that should grip your soul right now. This stirring you feel, this divine restlessness, it has an expiration date. Not because God changes His mind, but because seasons change. Windows open and windows close. Revelation 3:8 declares with thunderous authority, "I have placed before you an open door that no one can shut." But beloved, that verse doesn't say the door stays open forever. It says no one can shut what God has opened, but it can close when its season ends. Right now, this very second, you are standing at the threshold of that open door, the door to supernatural provision, the door to divine purpose, the door to a legacy that will echo through generations. But you have to choose to walk through it. This is not tomorrow's word, it is now. Heaven is shouting, "Move, obey, step into your calling before the door shuts forever." How many more signs do you need? How many more confirmations are you waiting for? How many more years will you spend wondering what if, instead of walking in what is? The stirring in your chest is getting stronger, isn't it? As I speak these words, something ancient is awakening in your spirit, something that remembers who you were before the world told you who you should be, something that recognizes the sound of your true name being called from the throne room of heaven. Your tears are not signs of weakness, they are seeds of revival. Every tear you've cried in secret over your struggling finances, heaven has collected them. Every prayer you've whispered in the dark about your purpose, God has recorded them. Every moment you've felt forgotten, the Almighty has been taking notes. And now He's saying, "Child, your time is up, not because I'm done with you, but because I'm ready to begin with you. The preparation is over, the positioning is complete. Your finest hour has arrived. This is your Damascus Road moment. This is your burning bush encounter. This is your Red Sea crossing. And just like those biblical heroes, You have a choice to make. Will you step forward in faith, or will you let fear keep you on the wrong side of your miracle? The countdown has reached 0. The alarm is sounding. Your spiritual alarm clock is not just ringing, it's screaming. If you feel this word burning in your bones, if you recognize your story in these words, if you know beyond any doubt that this message was meant for you, comment 777 right now. Not tomorrow. Not when you feel ready. Right now. This is your signature on heaven's contract, your agreement with destiny. And if someone you know needs to hear this word, if there's another chosen one in your life who's been struggling, wondering, waiting, share this message with them before it's too late, because this window won't stay open forever. Subscribe to walk with thousands of chosen ones who refuse to let their golden years become their forgotten years, who understand that retirement from the world means recruitment into the kingdom. Your hour has come, chosen one, and heaven is waiting for your answer. You thought the warning was the end, but in truth, it was only the beginning. Because when heaven warns, heaven also reveals. Right now, in the throne room of the Almighty, a sealed scroll is being broken open. 7 seals, 7 revelations. And you, chosen one, are about to witness something that has been hidden since the foundation of the world. Warning leads to revelation. Revelation leads to decision. Decision leads to destiny. But here's what will shatter every assumption you've carried about your twilight years. God didn't allow you to reach 80, 90, even 100 years old just so you could fade away quietly. He preserved you through every heart attack, every stroke, every diagnosis that should have taken you out, because he knew this moment was coming, this unveiling, this final revelation that would make sense of everything you've endured. Warning leads to revelation. Revelation leads to decision. Decision leads to destiny. Listen to me carefully, dear one. The reason your Social Security barely covers your medications, the reason your pension disappeared in the crash of 2008, the reason your children can't help you anymore because they're drowning in their own debt, none of that was random. It was strategic. Heaven allowed the systems of this world to fail you so completely that you would have nowhere else to turn but UP. Look at Job, the wealthiest man in the East, lost everything: his cattle, his children, his health, his fortune. But Job 42:10 declares, "The Lord restored Job's fortunes and gave him twice as much as he had before." Twice as much, at the end of his life. When the world said he was finished, God was just getting started. You've been living in your Job season, haven't you? The season where everything that could go wrong did go wrong. But what if I told you that every loss was actually positioning you for a gain so massive that it will leave your family speechless? Warning leads to revelation. Revelation leads to decision. Decision leads to destiny. Here's the revelation that's going to stop your heart. God has been using your financial desperation as a spiritual GPS, guiding you toward a treasure that has been waiting for you since 1952, since 1943, since the year you were born. While you've been worrying about making ends meet, heaven has been calculating compound interest on a promise that spans generations. But you have to understand something that most believers never grasp. Ecclesiastes 3:1 says, "To everything there is a season." Your season of lack wasn't punishment, it was preparation. Your season of struggle wasn't abandonment, it was appointment. God was preparing you for a revelation so profound that if it had come when you were 30, it would have destroyed you with pride. If it had come when you were 50, it would have ruined you with greed. But now you're ready. Because now you know what it means to truly need him. The scroll is opening, chosen one. Can you feel it? That trembling in your chest isn't anxiety, it's anticipation. Your spirit recognizes what your mind can't yet comprehend. Something ancient is being unveiled. Something that will make your final chapter the most powerful testimony your family has ever witnessed. But here's where it gets dangerous. Here's where the enemy is mobilizing every force of hell to stop you from receiving what's about to be revealed. He knows that if you discover what God has hidden in the scroll with your name on it, you will become the most dangerous senior citizen in your zip code. Not dangerous to people, but dangerous to the kingdom of darkness that has kept your family in financial bondage for generations. Type "I'm ready" if your spirit feels this unveiling is for you. Don't think about it. Don't analyze it. If something in your bones is telling you this revelation has your name on it, declare it now. Because what happens next requires more than curiosity. It requires courage. The courage to believe that the God who parted the Red Sea for Moses at 80 years old might just part the financial Red Sea for you. The courage to believe that the God who gave Sarah a baby at 90 might just give you a miracle at 90. The courage to believe that your story isn't ending with struggle. It's ending with supernatural victory. But are you ready for what the scroll reveals when heaven breaks the final seal? You think nobody sees you anymore, don't you? You sit in that same chair every morning, watching the world rush past your window, and you wonder, does anyone even know I'm still here? Does anyone care that I'm still fighting, still breathing, still believing when everything around me says I should just give up? Listen to me, chosen one. Right now, at this very moment, there is a courtroom session happening in the heavenly realms. The gavel has been struck, the books have been opened, and your name is being called. Can you picture it? Towering angels, their wings spanning across eternity, standing at attention as the Ancient of Days takes his seat. Golden bowls filled with something precious are being carried forward by beings so radiant that earthly eyes could never behold them. The air itself crackles with the weight of divine justice about to be served. And what's in those golden bowls? Revelation 5-8 tells us exactly. The prayers of the saints are kept in golden bowls before the throne. Every desperate whisper you breathed at 3 a.m. when you couldn't sleep because the bills were due. Every tear that fell on your pillow when you felt so alone you thought your heart might stop beating. Every time you cried out, "God, do you even see me?" When the doctor delivered another diagnosis, when your children stopped calling, when your bank account showed zeros where there used to be enough. Those prayers didn't vanish into empty air. They didn't disappear into the void. Heaven has been collecting them like liquid gold, storing them in vessels so precious that they sit before the throne of the Most High God. But here's what will shatter your understanding of how God operates. In this cosmic courtroom, you're not the defendant. You're not standing trial. You are the plaintiff, and heaven is about to render judgment in your favor. Do you know what happens when God renders judgment? The earth shakes, mountains move, seas part. What man calls impossible becomes inevitable. And right now, the verdict is being read over your life. Guilty of faithfulness, guilty of endurance, guilty of believing when belief made no logical sense. The prosecution, that voice of the enemy that's been whispering, "You're forgotten, you're worthless, you're too old for miracles," has been silenced. Every lie has been exposed. Every accusation has been thrown out of court. You felt invisible for so long that you started believing it was true. Society treats seniors like expired products, doesn't it? Your opinions don't matter anymore. Your dreams are unrealistic. Your prayers seem to bounce off the ceiling. But in heaven's courtroom, there's a different record being read. On the 15th of March, 1987, she prayed for her grandson while holding her breath, thinking it might be her last prayer. Recorded. On the 3rd of December, 2019, he whispered, "I trust you," with tears streaming down his face as he signed the foreclosure papers. Recorded. Every sleepless night, every worried thought, every moment of choosing faith over fear. Recorded, recorded, recorded. The evidence is overwhelming. 70, 80, 90 years of faithfulness. Decades of trust when trust made no sense. A lifetime of believing God's promises when circumstances screamed lies. And now, the Chief Justice of the universe is about to issue a ruling that will shake the foundations of your reality. Here's what's happening that will break your heart with joy. God has been building a case for your blessing. Every injustice you suffered, every door that slammed in your face, every promise that seemed delayed, It was all evidence being gathered for this moment. The scales of divine justice are about to tip so far in your favor that what's coming will leave you breathless. That social security check that barely covers your medications, heaven sees it as insufficient evidence of your worth. That nest egg that disappeared in market crashes, the court rules it inadequate compensation for a lifetime of service. Those golden years that feel more like bronze. The divine verdict declares them unworthy of someone who has endured with such grace. But you need to understand something that will either terrify you or liberate you completely. This courtroom session has a deadline. The docket is closing. The final witnesses are being called. And if you don't step forward to claim your judgment, if you don't stand up and declare, "I am here, I have been faithful, I am ready to receive what heaven has ruled in my favor," the window closes. Margaret from Queens almost missed it. 87 years old, living on $900 a month Social Security, rationing her heart medication. But that phone call, that settlement she'd forgotten about, that was heaven's court ruling being executed in the natural realm. She almost didn't answer because she thought it was another scammer. How many divine verdicts go unclaimed because we're too tired to answer the phone? How many heavenly judgments gather dust because we've been conditioned to expect nothing more than survival? If you've ever felt your prayers vanished into the dark, write "Heaven heard me" in the comments right now. Declare it. Because, chosen one, the cosmic courtroom has heard every word, recorded every tear, and is about to release a judgment so overwhelming that your financial struggles, your loneliness, your feeling of being forgotten will be erased like they never existed. But the session is ending. The angels are preparing to adjourn, and what I'm about to reveal next will determine whether you walk out of this courtroom with empty hands, or with a divine decree that will transform your remaining years from survival into supernatural abundance. The question echoing through heaven right now is simple. Will you rise and accept the verdict that's been prepared in your favor? Dear chosen one, I need you to stop right where you are and look back at your life. Really, look at it. Not with the eyes of regret, but with the vision of heaven itself. Do you see that betrayal at 47 when your business partner walked away with everything? That wasn't just greed destroying your dreams. That was God removing someone who would have limited your destiny. Do you see that financial collapse in 2008 when you lost your retirement savings? That wasn't just market failure. That was heaven clearing the path for something bigger than a 401 Kelvin could ever provide. Joseph's brothers meant evil against him when they sold him into slavery. But Genesis 50:20 declares the truth that will shatter your understanding. You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good to accomplish what is now being done, the saving of many lives. Your life is not scattered ashes, it's a mosaic only heaven could design. Every broken piece has been placed with surgical precision. That divorce that nearly destroyed you at 62, it wasn't punishment for your failures. It was preparation for the ministry of restoration you're about to walk into. That decade of unemployment in your 50s, it wasn't evidence that you were worthless. It was training in radical dependence on God that qualified you for supernatural provision. Listen to me carefully. The patterns in your life were never random. They were prophetic. That child you lost, the one whose empty bedroom still breaks your heart. Did you know that your tears over that loss have been creating rivers of compassion that will heal hundreds of grieving parents? Isaiah 53:3 tells us that Jesus was a man of sorrows, acquainted with grief. Your acquaintance with grief wasn't accidental. It was appointment with divine purpose. But here's what will shock you to your core. Every loss prepared you for gain. Every betrayal built your discernment. Every season of poverty sharpened your faith until it could cut through impossibilities like a sword through silk. You thought you were failing. You were actually graduating. Think about Moses. 40 years in Pharaoh's palace learning leadership. 40 years in the wilderness learning humility. 80 years of preparation for the 10 plagues that would shake an empire. Do you think those 80 years were wasted? Do you think God was late with Moses' assignment? No, beloved. God's timing is surgical precision, wrapped in eternal love. Your patterns are prophecies. Your setbacks were setups. Your valleys were training grounds for the mountaintop ministry you're about to step into. That loneliness you've carried for 20 years since your spouse passed, it wasn't abandonment, it was sanctuary. God needed to speak to you in the quiet, away from the noise, downloading instructions for your final assignment that required absolute clarity. Job 33:14 reminds us, "For God does speak now one way, now another, though no one perceives it." You perceived it, didn't you? In the 3 a.m. conversations with heaven, in the dreams that felt more real than reality, in the knowing that settled in your bones when everyone else said you were finished. The cancer scare at 71 that turned out benign. That wasn't just good medical news. That was God showing you that death has no power over someone who carries eternal purpose. The fall that broke your hip at 75, that wasn't just aging. That was heaven slowing you down so you could hear the instructions you'd been too busy to receive. Every pattern points to prophecy. Every struggle spelled out your calling in a language only your spirit could read. But here's the urgency burning in my chest right now. Time is running out for you to see these patterns clearly. The enemy has been working overtime to convince you that your life was a series of random tragedies, meaningless setbacks, and wasted years. He knows that if you ever connect the dots, if you ever see the prophetic masterpiece your life has been, you'll step into an authority that will terrorize hell itself. Romans 8:28 isn't just a pretty verse for greeting cards. And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love him, who have been called according to his purpose. All things, not some things, not the easy things, all things. That bankruptcy at 55 taught you that God provides outside the system. That rejection from your own children taught you to find your identity in heaven's approval alone. That health crisis that left you bedridden for 6 months taught you to fight battles in the spirit realm while your flesh was weak. You weren't being punished, chosen one. You were being prepared. And now, with clarity that only comes in your golden years, you can see it, the pattern, the prophecy, the divine design that took 87 years to complete. Every thread woven with purpose. Every scar placed with intention. Every tear collected in bottles by the one who wastes nothing. Your life wasn't chaos, it was choreography. But before this message ends, I'm going to reveal the hidden prophetic mark in your life. The one signature that heaven placed on your journey that proves beyond any doubt that you were chosen before you took your first breath. This mark is so personal, so specific to your story, that when I reveal it, you'll know with absolute certainty that this message was ordained for you. If you see the patterns now, if the puzzle pieces of your past are suddenly clicking into place, if you're beginning to understand that your pain was actually prophecy, whisper in the comments, "It was prophecy all along." Because what you're about to discover next will not only explain why every struggle was necessary, it will reveal why everything you've endured was pointing to this exact moment when heaven's final countdown reaches 0. You know what's happening right now, don't you? While you've been sitting in that chair, feeling forgotten by a world that's moved past you, something extraordinary has been unfolding in the heavens. The book of Revelation speaks of 7 trumpets, divine announcements that shake the foundations of earth and eternity. But tonight, I need you to understand something that will change everything you thought you knew about your life. The 4th trumpet is sounding, and it's sounding for you. Listen to what John witnessed on the island of Patmos. The 4th angel sounded his trumpet, and 1/3 of the sun was struck, 1/3 of the moon, and 1/3 of the stars, so that 1/3 of them turned dark. Revelation 8:12. The world interprets this as judgment, as darkness, as the end of light. But chosen one, what if I told you they've got it backwards? What if the 4th trumpet isn't about lights going out? What if it's about hidden lights finally being revealed? Think about it. When 1/3 of the visible light dims, what happens? The stars that were always there but overshadowed by brighter lights suddenly become visible. The constellation of forgotten souls, the galaxy of overlooked saints, the universe of senior warriors who've been shining in the darkness all along. You've been living in the shadow of that sun, that moon, those blazing stars that captured all the attention, the successful children who never call, the younger generation that treats you like yesterday's news, the society that sees your grey hair and assumes your purpose expired with your youth. But heaven is saying, their light is dimming. Your time to shine is now. The world overlooked you, family overlooked you, time overlooked you, but heaven never did. Do you remember when you were 45, 55, 65, watching younger people get promoted past you, seeing opportunities handed to those with smoother skin and sharper technology skills? You thought it was over then. You believed the lie that your best chapters were closing. But what if God was actually hiding you? What if he was positioning you in the shadows, not as punishment, but as preparation? Moses spent 40 years invisible in the wilderness before God called him to lead a nation. 40 years. That's longer than most people's entire careers today. While Pharaoh's court was celebrating their achievements, Moses was learning to hear God's voice in the silence. When the burning bush finally appeared, Moses wasn't a young hotshot anymore. He was 80 years old, ancient by any standard. But heaven doesn't operate on human timelines. The fourth trumpet reveals a shocking truth. What the world calls irrelevance, God calls readiness. Right now, as I speak these words, there are 87-year-old grandmothers sitting in nursing homes, dismissed by their own families as past their prime. But in the spirit realm, they're generals commanding legions of angels through their midnight prayers. There are 79-year-old grandfathers, retired and forgotten, who carry more wisdom in their weathered hands than entire corporate boardrooms possess. The fourth trumpet is God's divine megaphone, announcing to the universe, the age of the overlooked has arrived. But here's what will shock you to your core: you weren't overlooked by accident. You were hidden by divine design. While others were building their kingdoms of sand, you were being refined in the furnace of obscurity. While they were collecting likes and followers, you were collecting something far more valuable: tested faith, proven character, and unshakable trust in a God who never forgets his own. Revelation 8:13 gives us a warning that cuts to the bone. Woe, woe, woe to the inhabitants of the earth, because of the trumpet blasts about to be sounded. But notice who this woe is for the inhabitants of earth, those who've made this world their home, who've built their identity on temporal things. It's not for you, chosen one. You're just passing through. The fourth trumpet isn't your judgment, it's your vindication. Every time your adult children rolled their eyes at your old-fashioned values, every time society pushed you aside for someone younger, faster, more relevant, every time you felt invisible in a world obsessed with noise and flash, heaven was taking notes. And now, as the fourth trumpet sounds, God is saying, watch what I do with the ones they discarded. You thought your voice didn't matter anymore because it doesn't carry the same strength it once did. But God doesn't need volume, he needs authenticity. You thought your influence was gone because you don't understand the latest social media trends. But divine influence doesn't need technology, it needs testimony. The fourth trumpet is sounding across America right now, calling forth an army of spiritual warriors who've been camouflaged in plain sight. Senior citizens who've been written off as yesterday's news are about to become tomorrow's headlines in heaven's economy. But here's the urgency that should grip your soul. This trumpet blast has a window. It's not going to sound forever. The stars that become visible when the sun dims don't stay visible once dawn breaks. Your moment of divine visibility is now. Every morning you wake up wondering if you matter. Is God giving you another day to step into your calling? Every ache in your bones is a reminder that your body is temporary, but your assignment is eternal. Every moment you feel forgotten by the world is heaven whispering, but I remember you. The fourth trumpet reveals that you are not forgotten relics gathering dust on heaven's shelf. You are last-day warriors being awakened for the final battle. You are not sunset people fading into darkness. You are midnight stars becoming visible precisely because everything else is dimming. If you've ever felt overlooked, if you've ever wondered if your life still has purpose, if you've ever questioned whether anyone sees your faithfulness in the shadows, type, "Heaven sees me right now." That declaration doesn't just silence the lies of invisibility, it announces to principalities and powers that another hidden warrior has remembered who they are. But understanding the fourth trumpet is only the beginning, because there's something even more shocking waiting for those who realize their overlooked season wasn't abandonment, it was appointment. And what God is about to reveal next will explain why your greatest battles were never meant to break you, but to build you into something this generation has never seen before. Dear chosen one, I need to whisper something to you that heaven has kept hidden until this very moment. Lean in close. Listen carefully, because what I'm about to reveal will shatter every lie you've believed about yourself. You think you're broken. You think you're forgotten. You think God made a mistake when He allowed you to live this long while others didn't. But here's the secret that's been sealed in heaven's vault until now. Your survival itself is the mark. Your very existence at this age, in this moment, watching this message. That is the prophetic sign everyone's been looking for. Look at your hands, those weathered hands that have buried spouses, signed divorce papers, held eviction notices, counted pills in the middle of the night wondering if there were enough. Those hands are still moving. Those fingers are still feeling. That heart is still beating. Do you know what that means? In the book of Daniel, chapter 3, 3 Hebrew boys stood before a furnace heated 7 times hotter than normal, 7 times more intense than anything designed to destroy human flesh. King Nebuchadnezzar watched as soldiers threw them into flames so fierce that the guards who tossed them in died from the heat before they could step away. But Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego walked around in that fire like it was a spring morning in Central Park. You are walking in that fire right now, and you don't even realize it. You outlived the betrayal that should have destroyed your faith. You outlived the diagnosis that had a 5-year survival rate. You outlived the bankruptcy that broke men half your age. You outlived the depression that whispered "end it all" in your ear for months. You outlived the loneliness that feels like drowning in a crowded room. You outlived the betrayal. You outlived the sickness. You outlived the loss. And you are still here. Still here when statistics said otherwise. Still here when doctors shook their heads. Still here when family members wrote you off. Still here when your own mind told you to give up. That's not luck. That's not good genes. That's not modern medicine. That's the mark of heaven on your life. But here's what will break your heart and heal it at the same time. While you've been apologizing for taking up space, while you've been feeling like a burden, while you've been wondering why God hasn't called you home yet, He's been bragging about you in the throne room. Look at Job, He told Satan. Have you considered my servant Job? Job 1-8. And what happened next? The enemy unleashed everything he had. Bankruptcy, sickness, death of children, betrayal by friends. But Job kept breathing. Job kept believing. Job kept standing. You are Job in the 21st century. Every attack that came against your life, every weapon that was formed against you, every scheme that was designed to take you out, they all failed. Isaiah 54-17 declares, "No weapon formed against you shall prosper. Not some weapons, not most weapons, no weapon. Your bank account may be empty, but you're still here. Your body may be failing, but you're still here. Your family may have scattered, but you're still here. Your dreams may have died, but you're still here." Do you understand what this means? Your very breath right now is heaven's signature on the document of your destiny. Every inhale is God's declaration that your assignment is not complete. Every exhale is the Spirit whispering, "Not yet, not yet, I'm not done with them." The enemy counted you out at 60, wrote your obituary at 70, planned your funeral at 80. But here you sit, breathing, thinking, feeling, hoping, still believing somewhere deep down that God has something more. That hope is the Holy Spirit refusing to let you quit. You want to know why you're still alive? Because dead people can't testify, corpses can't comfort, Those who've given up can't give hope to those who are giving up. You are God's living, breathing proof that He keeps His promises, that He never leaves, that He never forsakes, that His faithfulness endures to all generations. Psalm 100:5 says it plainly, His faithfulness continues through all generations. You are that faithfulness walking around in a human body. But here's the urgent part. Here's why this message found you today. Heaven is about to unveil you to the world. The testimony you've been carrying in silence is about to become the sermon that saves a generation. The scars you've been hiding are about to become the credentials that qualify you for your greatest assignment. Your survival was not accidental. Your endurance was not coincidental. Your persistence through decades of struggle was prophetical. If you're still alive, it means heaven's not done. It means your greatest chapter hasn't been written yet. It means the best wine was saved for last. It means at 70, 80, 90 years old, you're not winding down. You're being wound up for something that will echo through eternity. But the window is closing. The invitation is being withdrawn. The final call is being made. If you feel this truth burning in your chest right now, if you recognize yourself in these words, if you know beyond doubt that your survival is supernatural, type these 4 words in the comments. I am the proof. Because chosen one, you are. You are the living proof that God's promises are yes and amen. You are the breathing evidence that His mercy endures forever. You are the walking testimony that He who began a good work in you will complete it. But what happens next depends entirely on whether you finally embrace the truth that your greatest days aren't behind you. They're about to begin. Beloved chosen one, as we reach the end of this divine encounter, I need you to carry 3 unshakable truths with you into tomorrow and every day that follows. First, your survival is not coincidence, it is divine commission. Every breath you draw is heaven's declaration that your assignment remains active. At 70, 80, 90 years old, you are not a burden on this earth. You are a blessing waiting to be unleashed. Second, the struggles you have endured were not punishments, they were preparations. Every tear has watered the ground of your testimony. Every scar has become a credential of your authority. Every sleepless night has been training for the dawn that's about to break over your life. Third, time is not your enemy, it is your ally. While the world whispers that your best days are behind you, heaven thunders that your finest hour is ahead of you. The wine God has saved for last is the sweetest, the strongest, the most precious vintage of all. But hear me clearly, dear one, you are not walking this path alone. Even when your family doesn't understand, even when friends have faded away, even when the mirror reflects loneliness back at you, the God who has sustained you this far is still sustaining you now. He is moving mountains you cannot see, opening doors you haven't found yet, preparing blessings you cannot imagine. And beyond God's faithfulness, you have found your tribe here tonight. Look at these comments. See these hearts connecting. Feel these spirits resonating with your own. Thousands of chosen ones just like you, carrying the same fire, facing the same battles, believing for the same breakthrough. You are part of something bigger than your individual struggle. You belong to a family of overcomers, a community of survivors, a fellowship of the faithful. So let me ask you this final question, and let it echo in your heart long after this video ends. If God has brought you through everything that should have destroyed you, why would He abandon you now at the threshold of your greatest victory? The answer burns in your spirit even as I speak it. He wouldn't, He won't, He never will. Before I release you into your destiny, join me in this sacred moment of prayer. If you're able, place your hand on your heart and let me speak over your life with the authority of 5 decades walking with the Almighty. Father God, Ancient of Days, the one who was and is to come, I lift up every precious soul who has stayed with us through this entire message. Lord, you see them, not just their silver hair and weathered hands, but their warrior hearts and unbreakable spirits. You know every battle they've fought, every tear they've shed, every night they've lain awake wondering if you remembered their name. Tonight, Father, Let them feel your hand upon their shoulder. Let them sense your presence filling their room, their car, wherever they are right now. Breathe fresh strength into their weary bones. Pour new hope into their questioning hearts. Restore their confidence in your unchanging love. Lord, bless their finances. You know the bills that keep them awake, the medications they ration, the choices between groceries and prescriptions. You are Jehovah Jireh, their provider, and you have never failed them yet. Open windows of heaven they cannot imagine. Send provision from sources they would never expect. Bless their health. You are the great physician who heals all diseases. Touch their bodies with your healing power. Strengthen what is weak. Restore what is broken. Renew what is worn out. Give them vitality that defies their age and energy that amazes their doctors. Bless their relationships. Heal the rifts with their children. Restore the connections that matter. Bring new friendships that understand their heart. Let them no longer feel invisible or forgotten, but surrounded by love and valued for their wisdom. Most of all, Father, remind them daily that they are chosen, they are beloved, they are never alone. Let them wake each morning knowing that this is the day you have made for their breakthrough. Let them sleep each night in perfect peace, knowing you are working while they rest. In the mighty name of Jesus, who sits at your right hand interceding for us all, I seal this prayer with faith, hope, and unshakable love. Amen. Now, chosen one, I want to hear from you. In the comments below, tell us what God spoke to your heart tonight. What shifted in your spirit? What are you believing Him for in this new chapter? Don't hold back. Your testimony might be exactly what another chosen one needs to hear. If this message has stirred your soul, if you recognize yourself in these words, if you feel part of this divine family, share this video with someone who needs to remember they are not forgotten. Someone who needs to know their survival is supernatural. Someone who needs to understand their greatest days are still ahead. Thank you for staying with me through this entire journey. Thank you for opening your heart, for letting these words penetrate the sacred chambers of your spirit. Your faithfulness to watch until the end tells me everything I need to know about your character. You don't quit, you don't give up, you see things through to completion. If this is your first time here, welcome to the family. Hit that subscribe button and join thousands of believers who gather here regularly to be reminded of who they are in Christ. We're building something beautiful together, a community where faith grows, hope is restored, and chosen ones remember their true identity. Until we meet again, walk in the authority of your calling, rest in the certainty of His love, and never forget you are chosen, you are loved, and your story is far from over. God bless you mightily, warrior. Your finest hour awaits.